There's very few people in this valley that'll be able to retire. They're sitting there and they're going to have to struggle. I know some of them, they're in their 70s still driving a logging truck.
If we don't manage at all, we're seeing increased wildfires. If we manage too heavily, we're seeing degradation of wildlife habitats and boom-bust economies.
People were hungry for a different model of ownership that really recognized their role in managing and experiencing or interacting with these lands.
I know.
A generation ago, federal policy changes led to the end of a decades-long program of aggressive timber cutting on public forests. Meanwhile, private forest companies increasingly sold their timberlands to distant owners. These changes, combined with a century of fire suppression and heavy timber cutting, left communities and landscapes on the economic and ecological edge. With public agencies and private businesses pulling out of remote rural communities, local citizens across the West launched a movement, a network of community-based organizations working to build a restoration economy, healing the land while putting local people back to work. As these groups have matured, their shared idea has become an effective movement for many struggling rural communities.
We're standing on the Mount Adams Community Forest. The community forest has been a very significant endeavor for our organization in that it has been a place that people can directly connect with. Through local ownership, it has restored or kind of rejuvenated a connection with the land where people have some say in how these lands are being managed, whether they're able to access it, what they're able to do when they do access it, how they benefit from some of the financial benefits or returns that come from managing this resource.
I've lived in this valley all my life. I'm fourth generation here in the valley. When I was a kid, we used to be able to ride our motorbikes all over the hills, and everybody in the valley had a job. And then as time went on, that company sold off, and the next company came and it sold off, and the mill at Klickitat closed, and the lumber company up here, there's no more, those jobs were gone.
A group of community members formed Mount Adams Resource Stewards in 2003 under the leadership of Jay McLaughlin, a former school teacher who also trained as a forester. MARS, as the group is called, followed the path of a number of other community-based organizations that have formed in the Northwest in the past 2 decades. It worked to connect local people with new jobs in the forest and develop projects with federal land managers. MARS also saw an opportunity to become part of the local land ownership scene and set its sights on buying commercial timberland that could become a community forest for Glenwood.
These communities are historically very culturally tied to the landscape, and so they want to find economic opportunity that continues that relationship with the landscape. It transforms that relationship.
MARS is one of a number of organizations in the Northwest working to strengthen the relationship between local people, government agencies, scientists, and other nonprofits through projects with both ecological and economic benefits for the community. It's challenging work that often happens in the background of big initiatives. Community-based organizations like MARS are connectors, bringing together agencies with authority over public lands, landowners, investment capital, and local people who can work in the woods.
I think the key is that these CBOs, although they're doing really important work, they are doing heroic work, they are doing thankless work, they are not doing it alone. They are supposed to be kind of a glue in the community that helps bring together and mobilize different actors. So although they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting themselves, I think the key is when they're able to catalyze all their local partners and leverage that collective strength. That's what I think makes it work.
Something that's inspired us as far as the local capacity question. We recently became part of what's known as the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network. And there were powerful narratives of local communities, local crews that showed up on the fire, and they'd been involved in prescribed burns there in the spring before the fires, long before the fires had hit. And they knew that ground. They knew where the safety zones were, they knew where the anchor spots were, they knew the places to put in the fire lines, and that gave them an advantage. And I think that really underscores the value of local communities being more fully engaged in natural resource management, whether it's fire or whether it's so many of the other things that we could talk about. That there's a capacity need, there's a capacity gap that we can fill to hopefully improve the quality of how things like fire are managed on the landscape.